Bastions. Alright, here we go. A bastion is a location that belongs to a player character. A home, stronghold, and a place of power that the character nurtures and develops over the course of a campaign. The bastion offers a character temporary refuge from the dangerous world of adventuring, provides opportunities for a character to craft magic items, conduct research, harvest poisons, build ships, carry out a broad range of other activities. So, are we saying that the idea is that you can only have downtime at a bastion or something? It's up to the DM to decide whether bastions are available in the campaign, which is probably why it's a Dungeon Master Guide thingy. Just click on it, God. Are best suited to campaigns that allow characters to return to their bastions during intervals when they're not actively adventuring. Sure. There's no need to choose between going on adventures commanding a bastion. A character can do both at once. Small question. I'm assuming we're going to get to that, but from what I'm reading right now, it feels like a bastion is going to be tied to one character. Which actually, after playtesting Strongholds and Followers for a while, I'm personally actually not a fan of. But we'll get to that. A bastion has special facilities, generate in-game benefits. Sure, makes sense. And these facilities can also undertake projects while the character is otherwise preoccupied. Bastions are intended to be havens for the characters who own them, although random events might test a bastion from time to time. Bastion events section. The bastion can only be destroyed in 2 ways. See the fall of a bastion section. Okay. Most importantly, a bastion is a creative playground for a player in a shared storytelling space in the campaign. DM should be as permissive as possible. Sure. Okay. So, don't be a dick is literally what this says. I mean, that should be a disclaimer on your book if we're being awesome. If we're being awesome, if we're being honest. Where did awesome come from in that sentence? I have no idea. Alright. Design notes. Keep the following notes in mind as you review the documents. Defender and Hirelings. To ease the burden on players, we don't present or require statistics for Bastion, Hirelings, and Defender. All a player needs to track is the number of each in their Bastion. Players can assign names and personalities to their... Okay, so... Sure, so what we're saying here is... Don't make a stat block for every NPC. That's going to depend on the rules. Like, for Kingdoms and Warfare, I've never really had the need to make stats for your army. So, I'm fine with that. It's a nice addition. Like, you can... Honestly, I like the minion... If I really do have to have my players fight through a portion of an army, I tend to just use the minion rules from Flea Mortals. Again, MCDM. You guys have no idea how much stuff I use from MCDM. But yeah, I get this. This is... Yeah, it's actually a smart choice. Making a lot of stats makes prep harder, and although technically you could like make, I don't know, like 3 categories of hirelings, right? Like hirelings in the like, you know, you make I don't know, a fighter, a archer, and or a guardian, an archer, and an assassin or something, and you give each of them a specific stat block. You assume that none of the hirelings have magic or have access to magic except for maybe 1 cantrip. If you want to have like mage archers. You know. And Bastion gives characters new ways to spend their gold, but we want the gold they spend to make them happy. As opposed to feeling like mortgage payments. Oh, I've done that once. I've had my players pay off a mortgage once. And that was because I was at the time buying my own house. People who've seen Demons of Imanod know about this, by the way. Okay. Gaining a Bastion. If you allow Bastions in your campaign, characters acquire their Bastions when they reach level 5. Makes sense. I think from level 1 through 4, you still feel too much as like a rookie to really have... Like 1 through 4 should be the setup to the Bastion. Although I have given my players a Bastion at level 3 or 4, or a Stronghold at 3 or 4. It's not that big of a deal to do it at lower level, but, you know. You and the players can decide together how these bastions comes into play. A character might inherit or receive a parcel of land on which to build their bastion, or they might take a pre-existing structure and refurbish it. Fair to assume that work has been going on behind the scenes of the campaign during a character's early adventuring career, so the bastion is ready for use when the character reaches level 5. Again, very heavily getting the sense that it's going to be one bastion per player. Which, again, I don't know how big of a fan I am, but we'll see. The shape, style, and function of a character's bastions are up to the players to determine. Example, a wizard might build a tower, cleric might make a shrine, fire might make a fortified keep, rogue might establish a guild hall, sure. Characters of other classes might choose one of these forms or combine them, sure. Paladin's bastion might be similar to a shrine, but is fortified as a fighter's stronghold. Multiple characters can combine their bastions. Yeah, okay. At this point, I'm very heavily getting like one player, one bastion senses. Which, yeah, I mean, we'll see. But they can use them to form a single large structure. Bastion map. Oh, we're getting a bastion map at some point. Okay. Not every character needs to have a bastion. It's fine for some players in your campaign to opt into bastion ownership and others to opt out. See, I don't necessarily agree with that. Because the idea that I'm getting right now, although if it's fully money-based, it's fine, but the idea, here's the reason why. Again, this comes down to me having played with strongholds and followers, and strongholds being tied to one character. The abilities and strength that you get from that is sort of an unbalancing factor. Right? I remember the Wizard Stronghold and Strongholds and Followers gives your player like X amount of turns where they can double concentrate. So you have 2 spells that you can concentrate on, which can be a very powerful thing for especially something like a wizard. But if only the wizard gets that benefit, which to be fair, you could make the argument like, well, the fighter's never going to get that benefit because they don't cast spells. But even if you go off of that idea, it's still not 100% fair that only one person gets that advantage because you as the DM do not want to give players 5 strongholds in the strongholds and followers rules, because it's literally, I think it's like 15,000 gold pieces per stronghold to build, so that's 75,000 gold pieces you'd be giving them, you know. So I don't know if I necessarily agree with this sentiment. I think bastions, again, it depends on how they implement it. If it's purely gold based, then maybe, but yeah. It's fine for some players in your campaign to opt into bastion ownership, others to opt out. Characters without bastions of their own can still gain some benefits from their friends' bastions. Okay, that's different. But even then, you're gonna need to look at balancing. Every bastion contains basic and special facilities, encompasses everything from kitchens and back rooms to fantastical menageries and magical laboratories. Okay? Character can add basic facilities to their bastions at any time. Bastion at any time, sorry. Spending money in each time depending on the facility. Each bastion begins with 2 special facilities, and a character adds additional special facilities on reaching levels 9, 13, and 17. Without using money? Or are you just capable of getting 2 at level 5, and then I guess we're going to have to see that once we get to the facilities. Bastion turns. As time passes in the campaign, characters take bastion turns. You know, every single time I say the word bastion, I think of the video game. Just random fact. Occurring in their bastions. Whether or not the characters are present, a bastion turn occurs every 7 days of in-game time, though the DM can alter that frequency. So, DM has final say, but go with 7 days to be easy. I think my domain actions are 10 days because that like kind of makes it nice at like 3 in a month, and it's very easy for me to run it because I have 30-day months in my worlds. Because that's just easier to run, in my opinion. It means I don't have to spend as much time on the calendar. How Bastion turns work. By default, Bastion turns occur every 7 days, giving characters regular opportunities to issue orders to their Bastions, reap the benefits. Characters are on a long journey away from their Bastion. After the characters have been away for 7 days, you might say, time for a Bastion turn. Since you're not here, resolve the maintain order for your Bastion, then roll for Bastion events. The characters spend 7 days or more in their Bastions between adventures. You might say you have 6 weeks to spend in your Bastion. Go ahead and resolve 6 Bastion turns. Okay. The characters return to their Bastions in the mid. This doesn't tell me anything right now. I don't know why you're starting with this. You're saying like, time for a Bastion turn? Resolve the maintain order and then roll for an event. I can kind of guess what this is. It's like the leaders are not there, so there's a chance like a mutiny breaks out or whatever. Ooh, that technically means you could use this to have like a ship Bastion. To be fair, that'd be cool. Make a One Piece campaign out of this. Resolve the maintain order so you don't have a mutiny on your ship or whatever. And then a random event happens, right? I'm assuming that's how that's going to work, but that doesn't tell me anything on how they work, right? Character returns to their Bastion in the midst of an adventure. You have just enough time to issue an order if you like. Take a Bastion turn before you leave again. So pretty much you're saying, okay, so what, like... So put up a calendar and every 7 long rests that your party have go, hey, what's your Bastion turn? Guys, come on. What, did you need 4 examples for that? I don't know, maybe. Sometimes you might want to slow the pace of Bastion turns if characters have a long period of downtime between adventures, say 6 more. I call for a Bastion turn every month instead of every 7 days. Here's the thing, if your Bastion turns are... If Bastion turns give you value, your players are not going to want that. If they give you stuff, I mean, to be fair, some of them might be like, oh, you know, we don't min-max, we're just here for the story. This is a mechanical implement. I would assume a lot of players are going to be like, wait, but we have 6 months. We need 6 times 4 is 24 Bastion turns. God, that would have been really bad if I fucked that up. And technically, I'm not even right. I'm assuming 28 days a month, so technically it'd be like 30. Bastion turns. Something. Like, I don't know if that's... I think, honestly, if you're doing this... Again, from my personal experience, I think the best way to do this... And to be fair, Strongholds and Followers also says this, that you can change the time that it takes. I personally do think that in a lot of cases it's just best to have like a set in stone amount of days and just try to keep to that as much as possible. I don't think you should want to do that. I'm not saying never do it. There's probably like very specific examples where it's not a bad idea to do that. For example, if you're in the middle of a war or whatever and like there's already other activity going on, it makes sense, right? Or if indeed you have like a little bit of just, you don't really want to take 30 turns with your players because you'd be spending 3 sessions on them, you can do this, sure, but I think it's probably best that you try to stick to those 7 days as much as possible. Then again, they said sometimes, so this is just gut reaction. Aim for about 6 to 8 Bastion turns per level. Oh, I hate that kind of stuff. Either hard-coded or fucking, yeah. If the characters are adventuring at a breakneck pace and gaining a level every week, they'll have no time to enjoy the benefits of their Bastions. On the other hand, if they're spending extended time between adventures, spacing out Bastion turns ensures that they won't amass more Bastion points than they can use. Oh god, here we go. Oh boy. Okay. Okay, here's my thought on this, right? I don't mind this idea of like try to aim for this amount. But honestly, I don't see Bastion turns working as nicely if you're working with experience. Unless you very specifically look at experience. I don't know. I have experience with running games with experience, and I've just flat out switched to milestones because it's so much easier to balance milestones the way that I do it. And then you can kind of pull this off. But even then, like, I don't know. I get the idea of aiming for it, but I think that this system should just stand on its own. If you have an extreme level, you shouldn't want to like drop the amount. Like if you have like a level that happens to take like, because here's the thing, right? They're saying aim for about 6 to 8 turns per level, right? Let's assume you've done let's you know what? Let's just assume you've done your big adventure, your level you're level 7, right? You just got level 7, right? So you start with the 6 to 8 thing again. But because you've just finished your adventure, you now take 3 months of downtime. Okay, you've already done 3 Bastion turns, assuming that you switch to this month, and that's assuming that your players aren't asking, hey, we'd actually like one every 7 days because we always got that. Like, you know what I mean? If you have an infinite resource, if you have a resource that you can farm by taking downtime and you can get advantages off of it, you have to be careful with that. So I don't know if I like the fact that they're balancing it around like 6 to 8 Bastion. It's the same thing as saying that the entirety of D&D should be balanced around like having 6 to 8 encounters on a day. Although that one's still slightly different, to be fair, but yeah. Bastion points. I don't know where that sentence went, but it went somewhere. Each special facility in a Bastion generates Bastion points during a Bastion turn, depending on the facility and Bastion order issued to that facility. Players are responsible for tracking how many Bastion points their character has, and Bastion points can't be transferred between characters or their Bastions. Character can spend Bastion points to acquire magic items for their Bastion or receive certain other special rewards. Bastion points are an extraction, reflecting the benefits characters accumulate when their Bastions are operating. Exactly how amassing and spending Bastion points leads to a character acquiring a magic item is up to the player's imagination. Perhaps the Bastion hirelings spread the word that the character is looking for a particular item. With sufficient time and goodwill built up in the community, the item finds its way to the Bastion as a gift. Perhaps Bastion hirelings work tirelessly to create the item the character desires. Okay. Yeah. I don't think this is bad. To be fair, like, I've far too long I've been playing with the idea of like characters getting the magic items that they want, being able to buy and craft them. It's why I got alchemy, crafting, and enchanting at some point, because it gave prices, crafting recipes, stuff like that. So this isn't bad. The fact that they're finally adding something. I still, however, think that it's getting more and more important for wizards to realize that if they want to do stuff with magic items, they need to put a gold cost next to their magic items. They really do. They need to start looking into putting like costs. And this is like kind of a good start, but also it's good that you can only get like rare items at 9, 13, like, and then very rare it's 13 and 17, even though I'm not there yet, but yeah. Sure. Accumulating Bastion points. When a character issues orders to special facilities in their Bastions, they generate Bastion points. Each special facility description indicates the number of Bastion points the facility generates when it completes an order. If a character issues the maintain order to the Bastion, each special facility instead generates 1d4 Bastion points. Special facilities that have been shut down or lost their hirelings because of an event don't generate Bastion points while they're out of commission. Characters can use money to influence the rate at which facilities generate Bastion points. Spending 25 gold pieces when issuing a Bastion order to a facility allows the player to roll the die for that facility Bastion points generation twice, use the higher results. Characters can't use this option while issuing the maintain order to the Bastion. So 25 gold pieces to be able to, like, let's assume that it's in the range of a D4. That's not going to be huge. Like, it's going to be like, what, on average, a Bastion point? Probably for 25 gold pieces, assuming that we're not like in the D20 range. Like for a D20 on average, if you get advantage on the roll, you get plus 3.5, right? Give or take. I'd have to see the calculations on that, but yeah. But it can't be a maintain order one, right? So maintain order is a different thing. So then pretty much if your player... Does that mean that they have to maintain order if they're not in their Bastion? Because... honestly, it almost feels like you shouldn't... It almost feels like you shouldn't have Bastions work on a time schedule, if that makes any sense. It almost feels like Bastions should be something that where you have like planned out story beats where you're like, now it's time for a Bastion action. I don't know why. I don't know. It almost feels like that should be the way to do it. That you should be going more for like in the region of like story beats than maybe timing. But at that point, I think for a new DM, that's going to be really difficult. Then again, should a new DM be playing with Bastions? Probably not, right? I think if you're DMing for the first time, you shouldn't be like, I would be very surprised if Wizards releases like One D&D and goes, oh, here's our like starting adventure, and it also has support for Bastions in there. I'd be extremely surprised if that's a thing. So I don't know. Acquiring magic items. So each time a character gains a level, they can spend their Bastion points to acquire a single magic. Okay, so there's also a limit per level. Any magic item acquired in this fashion must be approved by the DM. Sure. Bastion point cost of each magic item is based on the rarity, because they don't have anything but rarity in this fucking game. Bastion point cost of each magic item is based on the item's rarity, shown the spending rarity has a level prerequisite, must be that level or higher to get the item. Character must be in their Bastion to claim a magic item acquired with Bastion points, so you can't get them in the middle of an adventure. That makes sense. Characters away from the Bastion, the magic item remains secure in the Bastion until the character arrives to claim it. And characters who have reached level 20 can use Bastion points to acquire a magic item each time they earn a bonus feat. It's 9, 13, 17 keeps coming back, but I guess that makes sense because that's every single time you get a proficiency bonus increase, right? 5, 9, 13, 17 are like your 5, 9, 13, 17 are like your 4 proficiency bonus increase levels. 5 to get the Bastion, and then 9, 13, 17 to get more stuff. So I guess that makes sense. Technically, that happens in Kingdoms of Warfare too, right? You can control a number of units equal to your proficiency bonus. So technically, you can start building up your army even more the moment you get to your proficiency bonus increases. That's not a bad thing. Other uses of Bastion points. When gaining a level, a character can spend 10 Bastion points to ensure that word of their heroic deeds spreads throughout the region around their Bastion. For the next 7 days, the character has advantage on all charisma checks while within 50 miles of their Bastion. 50 miles is 2 days of travel. I do want to mention that 50 miles is 2 days of travel. I don't know how often, like, yeah. I don't know how large Waterdeep is, but, for example, but I don't know if, I don't know. This is so campaign dependent. And it makes sense. Again, Kingdoms of Warfare, I think, no, it was Strongholds and Followers also had this, I think, where, like, your domain is technically 48 hours of travel, so 2 days. So it's the same idea, but this, how good this is very campaign dependent. If you're playing in a city, it's going to be better than if you're playing on, you know, a giant continent like Imanod, where literally the next city is 6 days that way, you know. When a character dies, character can spend 100 Bastion points to return to life in their Bastion at the next dawn. I don't know how quickly you get them, so I don't know how good that is. You can only do this once per level. So making characters even less killable, I guess. I don't know. Is that really the only way you can spend Bastion points? I hope not. Be pretty bad. When a character gains a Bastion, it comes with 2 basic facilities and 2 special facilities. Both types of facilities are explained below. Okay, now I'm curious. Amount of space in a facility determines its maximum area in 5-foot squares, as shown in the facility space table. What now? I'm sorry, what now? Players... wait, what? Players can configure the squares of a facility as they please on the Bastion's map. Squares can be stacked so that so pretty much they're making their own battle map? Question mark? I don't know. I don't understand. Okay, sure. So pretty much a player needs to, so pretty much you can have either a cramped room, which is 2x2, or roomy room, which is 4x4, and a vast room, which is 6x6. Is this gonna come back to when we get to the facilities? I would assume so.